talk about the Anaheim Angels. We got Jeff Fletcher. He writes for them, for the OC Register out there in Orange County. Nice early morning start for you, and thank you so much for joining us on Over the Top Sports.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so listen, we're starting to get to the dog days now of spring training, the end of the month for the beginning of the season. A lot of hype, though, around the Angels. And listen, they haven't made the playoffs in Trout's 10 years. There's a lot of pressure starting to brew on this team to take that next step with this roster that they have.
Well, there is a lot of pressure. They did make the playoffs once in 2014. They got swept, though, so they haven't won a game still with Trout. But there's definitely, they have 3 years left of Mike Trout, and there's a lot of people that have thrown around the phrase wasting Mike Trout, and I don't think the Angels really look at it that way, but they certainly want to make the playoffs just as much as if they didn't have Mike Trout, as much as every other team. They definitely want to take the next step.
Yeah, and Jeff, again, thank you for joining us. Last season, the Angels had one pitcher over 150 innings, and that was Ricky Nolasco. How's the attitude been this spring about the rotation? I know you just wrote a piece about J.C. Ramirez, and the team's expecting a lot out of him.
Well, they've got a collection of 8 or 9 guys that they feel could be quality starting pitchers in the major leagues. Most of them have injury histories, so they're not really sure what they're going to get. But they feel like they're healthy now, and they've got the volume of them, so they think that if they have enough guys that stay healthy, they can be good.
Now, the Angels are going forward with a 6-man rotation. We haven't seen that in a while. Shohei Ohtani is a big part of that. How do you think the 6-man rotation is going to work? And do you think there's a lot of question marks in the rotation of who makes the 6-man?
I don't think there's too much questions. I think the first 5 are pretty certain. It's going to be Richards, Ohtani, Skaggs, Heaney, and Shoemaker. And then probably J.C. Ramirez, number 6. Could be Parker Bridwell or Nick Tropiano if somebody gets hurt. I don't think it's really going to be too much of an issue going with 6 men because, all the pitchers have injury history, so they can probably all use the extra day. And they're all, they're all good enough to be major league starters, so it's not like you're throwing a terrible pitcher out there for the sake of giving everybody else an extra day. They have enough guys. Now, if some of them start to get hurt, or they don't have enough, then that becomes an issue. But right now, they're okay.
That's what I was going to ask you next. The depth, if any of these guys go down, that's your 7th and 8th pitcher now coming in. Do you guys feel confident in the pitchers you have behind the 6-man rotation?
Well, that's Parker Bridwell, who last year had about a 3.70 ERA and about 20 starts, and Nick Tropiano, who was having a really good season before he went down with Tommy John surgery in 2016. So those are pretty decent insurance policies, and they also have a prospect named Jaime Barria, who they feel like can contribute sometime this year. So that's what they're hoping for.
And I think Tropiano actually has ties to Long Island, which is where we're out of. Jeff, real quick, Albert Pujols has played very little in the field the past 2 seasons, and now is projected to play a ton of first base. Do you know how willing he was to play first base every day for Ohtani? And do you realistically think he can hold up playing first base every day?
Well, first of all, Pujols wants to play first base all the time before Ohtani. It's not any sacrifice on his part to do it. And I believe that they felt he was ready to play first base before they even made the pitch for Ohtani, which was the way they were able to do it. Because if they went into the Ohtani meeting saying, hey, we can't offer you DH at bats because we have Albert Pujols locked into there, he wouldn't have picked him. So, Pujols has gotten in much better shape this year because he didn't have any surgery. And he loves playing first base. He's wanted to play first base all the time. He just wasn't physically able to. So I don't think it's a sacrifice for him in any way.
And you've seen Ohtani now a couple of times down there in the Cactus League. What have you guys seen from his arm? Is it everything that you expected just in the early? Is his stuff what you heard about on the pitching end? And then, of course, at the plate as well?
Well, we haven't seen him throw 102 yet, but I wouldn't really expect that in spring training. But,
I only know Syndergaard does that.
Yeah. We've consistently seen him in, 95, 96, 97, which is good enough, plenty good enough in the big leagues. And his breaking stuff is really impressive. He's got to throw a few more strikes. I think that's probably his biggest issue so far. If you get behind in the big leagues, you're not going to be successful. And offensively, I think that they really like his power. They sort of expect him to be like one of these street true outcomes guys who's going to strike out a lot, walk a lot, and hit a lot of homers. Now, by a lot, that bear in mind that means he's only probably going to get 275, 300 plate appearances at most because of pitching. So a lot of homers for him might be, 18 or 19. But that's what they think. They think they're going to get out of him, and we'll see. I'm not sure. I think it's going to be really tough to hit when you're only doing it part time. Keeping your timing and rhythm and all that stuff. But the Angels are certainly going to give him an opportunity to try it out.
Now, the Angels lowered the right field wall 10 feet over there. What influenced the organization to go forward with that?
Well, I think they did a lot of studies that just found that maybe it would be more of a benefit to them to have more of a balanced ballpark, not so pitcher friendly, and so they think that just by moving the line down across the wall, so it's 10 less feet you got to hit the ball to get a homer, that they think it'll help them. I'm not really sure how it's going to help them that much because they only have a couple left-handed hitters, and it's the same wall for the other team, which is probably going to have more left-handed hitters, but I trust that they've put a lot more thought into it than I have, so we'll see.
Anybody just joining us, we're speaking to Jeff Fletcher, Angels Beatwriter. Be followed on Twitter at Jeff Fletcher OCR on Twitter. That's his handle. And Jeff, we only see the pictures on Twitter or ESPN. But what's the media craze been like with Ohtani? Have you ever seen anything like this for spring training?
No, I haven't really seen anything like this. It hasn't actually been as crazy as I suspected it might be. So like the first day, there were about 100 media members out there, as opposed to like 4, which we would normally have. But then as the days went on, it kind of dwindled and it became a little more routine. And he's not doing anything new anymore. He's already pitched. He's already hit. So now there's maybe 25 or 30 extra media out there, which is not really that onerous. It's not that big of a deal. They move his press conferences out of the way of everybody else, so he doesn't disturb the rest of the team's workouts, and it doesn't take very long. It all seems to be working pretty smoothly so far.
And all the everybody's looking at Trout, Ohtani. You got a couple big names there, obviously with Pujols, even Upton. But a guy that I really like, and maybe it's because I'm biased, I'm an Atlanta Braves fan, but I thought Andrelton Simmons last year at the plate really took the next step. Having the chance to see him every day like you do, appreciating his game, at shortstop defensively, but also at the plate. What did he bring to that team, and how much can he lengthen that lineup and really make it tougher on other teams' pitching?
Yeah, he had a great year offensively last year. I don't think even the Angels expected that when they got him. I think they just thought that he's going to be an amazing shortstop, which obviously he is. He's the best shortstop I've ever seen. I covered Omar Vizquel too. He's incredible. He finds extra outs where you don't think that they exist. But offensively, if he could just hold his own and do what he did last year, that's a huge boost to their lineup. Because now, when the guys they've added to their lineup, when you have Cozart now and Kinsler in there and a full season of Upton, all of a sudden last year there were games where Simmons was even hitting a cleanup, I think, a few times, and now he's going to be hitting like 8. So that definitely lengthens out the lineup, and they really only have one guy in the lineup that's probably below average hitter, and that's Martin Maldonado, who won a Gold Glove at catcher. So I think they feel like they have a pretty good lineup now.
Jeff, when I talked to you to have you come on, I mentioned that we do have a big fantasy baseball audience. Is there somebody that maybe might be slipping under our radar that the listeners could just keep an eye on? Do you think this is the year that Andrew Heaney maybe stays healthy and lives up to the hype? Is there a name that we just haven't mentioned for fantasy baseball purposes?
Well, I would say if I were going to pick one guy on the team to have a breakthrough season that nobody's expecting this year, I would take Tyler Skaggs. I think he's got the third best stuff, basically raw stuff, on the whole pitching staff after Garrett Richards and Ohtani. And he just hasn't really been able to put it together. He's had a couple injuries. He had Tommy John surgery last year and missed half the season with just an oblique injury, which, not an arm injury, obviously. So that gives you a little more confidence that he's going to be okay with that. So he hasn't had an arm problem in, almost 2 years now. He's got great stuff. He's got a pretty good attitude. I think he's coming into that point in his career where it's kind of now he needs to show something. And, Heaney is sort of in the same category, but Heaney is coming off the arm problem. He had Tommy John surgery he just got back from last year. Skaggs is an extra year ahead of that. So I would take Skaggs as my kind of sleeper.
And at the back end of the bullpen there, Cam Bedrosian, the guy this year, we saw some of him last year. It looks like he had good stuff. He trusted now at the back end of that bullpen for the whole season?
No, I wouldn't say that. They have a Blake Parker who came out of nowhere last year and had a great season, kind of pitching all over the middle innings, and at the end of the season he was a closer. He's probably starting the season as a closer. Cam Bedrosian, I would say, is right there, and Bedrosian obviously has the stuff too. His last year, he had a groin injury that really ruined his whole year. He thinks he's over that, and he's strengthened his lower half this year, so he's hoping to get back to the way he pitched in 2016. He certainly could be a closer. I think probably both those guys are going to get saves for the Angels this year. I don't know who's going to get more, but they're going to just ride the hot hand. They're not going to designate one guy and say, you're our closer for the whole 6 months. They're going to kind of go with whoever's pitching the best.
Wow. Now, the hot stove wasn't too hot this offseason. You guys certainly made your splash with Ohtani, but there's guys like Lance Lynn, Alex Cobb, and Jake Arrieta out there still looking for a job. I thought maybe the six-man rotation might have been an interesting spot. You said earlier you're pretty comfortable with that. Do you have any idea if the Angels had any interest in these guys, and why are teams not going in on these guys right now?
Well, I know the Angels have probably checked in on everybody, and certainly another starting pitcher and a guy like Lance Lynn, who's got a pretty healthy track record, certainly would have a spot for them. But I think they just really don't want to put any more resources into a guy like that. They just got out from under the Josh Hamilton contract, which was a nightmare. So I don't think they really want to go in on any big contracts for anybody, which obviously is something that we're seeing from a lot of teams now. The Angels were maybe ahead of the curve in that, avoiding that. But I think they've kept in touch with these guys, but unless they can get a real steal on somebody, they're probably not going to do it. Because like I said, they got 9 guys that they feel like are major league starters this year. And if they're going to spend some money, they want to kind of maybe save it for the trading deadline or for next winter. I think those things are all factors for them.
Yeah, the C.J. Wilson contract was a killer too.
It looked good for 2 years, but not so good for the last 3.
Yeah, he's like racing now. You ever check up on his races?
No, I haven't seen what he's up to. I know he's selling cars also.
Like speed car racing.
He's out of sight, out of mind. But Jeff, finally, before we let you go, the 3 of us, we all think that they're definitely going to compete for that wild card spot in the AL. A lot of games to make up on Houston, who we think is just probably still the best team in the division and the league. Your prediction on where this team ends up by the end of the year?
Yeah, it's really hard to pick them to finish ahead of the Astros because, 21 games is a lot to make up. I think they could certainly make up half of that, but you're still in second place. So, I do think right now they look like about a 86 to 88 win team on paper. If things break their way, they could go to like 91, 92, which still might be second place. But certainly is good enough to get them in a wild card. They should definitely be probably one of the wild card favorites right now. And if they get there and can win one game, then who knows? Yeah,
and it would be Trout's first win in the playoffs, and it would be a lot of fun. Listen, they're a fun team to watch. A lot of good stories there, and we thank you so much for joining us, and wish them the best this year, and hopefully they have a good season. We can catch up with you going towards the postseason. So, Jeff Fletcher, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, thanks.
All right, that's Jeff Fletcher, Angels beat writer for the OC Register. You can follow him on Twitter at Jeff Fletcher OCR, giving us a couple of minutes there about the Anaheim Angels in the AL West. So it's going to be an interesting, I think, 2-team race. I don't know if it's going to be much of a race, but if anybody's going to give Houston any trouble, it's going to be the Angels. So thank you to him for joining us on Over the Top Sports Radio. Saturday morning, that concludes our first division preview that we are going to be giving to you every show between now and the end of the preseason, or as they call it, spring training. So good job by him. Anything you take out of that, maybe Skaggs,
Absolutely.
Maybe the closer by committee too as well. If you're a fantasy guy and you thought maybe this was going to be Cam, I was in on Cam thinking he was going to be the closer. You're going to have second thoughts about it now, especially fantasy-wise.
Yeah, a lot of things out of there, especially the Pujols thing struck me, that they wanted him to play first base. He wanted to play first base even before the whole Ohtani thing. So that to me is big considering his age. We've seen his offense is still steady, but Very interesting stuff. And, he and the other Angel writers project them to be an early wild card favorite. You would have to agree.
In the right field wall, doing that without those left-handed power hitters, that's a right-handed heavy team. You got Trout, you got Upton, you got Pujols, and they don't have those lefties. I know Ohtani is in there now, but
Cole Calhoun.
He even said, don't expect Ohtani to get any more than 300 at-bats. That'd be a lot for him. 18 home runs would be a lot for him, too.
Which is fine, and it makes sense to me, too. The whole Ohtani at-bats thing, too. You can't overwhelm the guy. You can't give him 500 at-bats.
He cannot be playing literally every single day, especially pitching in those games.
You need your legs.
The only other thing that you could take away fantasy-wise is if Ohtani's only going to see 200 at-bats, the hitting Ohtani is undraftable, if you ask me, in Yahoo. ESPN and CBS have him as one. That is just added value, having a pitcher that can hit on days he's not pitching. The hitting Ohtani is just going to be nothing more than a pickup and stream him that day.
You really have to manage him.
Right.
Well, you think of it this way.
When he plays, you start him.
Right.
If he gets to 300 at-bats, that doesn't even average 2 at-bats per game. So, how much are you going to get out of him? I don't know.
Well, it depends how they use him, honestly.
Listen, there'll be a week where he hits 2 or 3 home runs and everybody runs to get him off waivers.
What is it if he has a hot week and they just keep playing him? Maybe he's a phenom. We don't know.
And, Vinny, I'm not sure if you were on the show. We mentioned it. He projected as an 80 runner, and we talked about Vlad Guerrero Jr. with the 70 power or 70 contact, whatever it was. An 80 runner is Altuve speed. So. Interesting. Do you let him run when he gets on? Are you nervous about a sliding injury?
He's got Ichiro wheels.
Right. It's just, it's really just, we've never seen a player.
I'll tell you what, Mike Scioscia teams love to run.
Yeah.
So maybe they will be running him.
Yeah. So thank you so much once again to Jeff Fletcher.